There we go. I'm not sure if you guys were over in Pumpers Live, but he had to end because I think it was 3 in the morning there, and they were quite a bit ahead, so they were kind of tired. But I was just getting on a mental roll here, talking about a few things. We were talking about language and talking about words and why we speak in the way we speak. And for me, a big part of it is about, for me, it's the words I choose. They embody what I'm feeling. So if I'm speaking with someone, I feel what they're saying rather than listening necessarily to the words they're choosing. It's feeling each word and feeling their story and feeling what they're trying to express and feeling so a lot of times I feel their truth over hearing their expression, because sometimes some people maybe aren't very honest either with themselves or self-aware enough with themselves. So sometimes when they're speaking, they haven't gone deep enough in their own stories. Have a good night, Mercury. Keep speaking up. Aw, thank you very much. So the words I choose, like people were talking about my language and the way I speak, and a lot of questions lately, and people saying things like, "Oh, you're so articulate. You're so articulate." And so I was explaining in another live, in my reflection on why I speak the way I speak. Hey guys, hope you're having a good night or morning. I guess it's pretty early, but hey everybody. So yeah, so as talking about that there's different ways of expressing, and when we look at language, and it's kind of interesting because before that, Common Law Warrior was in a live as well with us, and he was talking about language. And if you've ever heard people who are are educated in common law, they tend to speak a certain way and they'll correct you. So if you say something like, they'll say men and women, and if somebody says to you, do you understand? No, you don't understand, right? There's a whole way of working with language, and language is something pretty profound. Good morning. So with language as well, like the meanings of words are really important, and what they embody, what they mean, but also the feeling that they hold is important. And it's actually quite interesting. I would even say, like, I went, because I'm Cree, and I wasn't raised with my language. My mom was the last Cree speaker. It was their first language, but because of residential schools and the Indian day schools, she lost a lot of her language. Hello, everybody. And so for me, I went to college, and I thought, you know what, they had a Cree class, and I thought, I'm going to take a Cree class. And when I went, it was so interesting. Like, first off, the dialect, to be able to hit the accent, I thought that was just so profound, and realizing that I was having such a struggle with hitting the dialect, the language, right? And the sounds of the language. But to see how language is a lens, that's really important. Like, language is such a beauty. It's more than just words. It's a lens. If you have people who are French Canadian and English Canadian and they're bilingual, a lot of times when they're flitting between the languages, they have to translate it. It's because it's another way of seeing. It's another way of engaging. But you could even go so far as to say it's also how you engage with the world, because it's a perception, right? Language, it gives you access to a perception. And so it's important to learn the language in its proper context. I didn't enjoy learning it in college because it was taken out of context. Hello, everybody. So if anybody wants to be part of this conversation, the beautiful conversation, then you're welcome to send an invitation. But to jump in the box, one of the boxes, I don't know how this works. But for some reason, when I get on here talking, I don't get a lot of people who jump in and be a part of the conversation. So I just kind of end up going off and ranting again and sharing whatever. So you guys are welcome also to ask any questions you want in the comments, and I will try to answer if I can. But I was just talking about language, right? Like, language is a perception. Language is a lens, and language also gives you access to how you interact with the world and with people, and with everything. It's actually, I was speaking with some elders once, and we were talking about language, and I really felt into what they were saying. And we were talking about how, like, the different sounds in the different locations from different people, And one of the things we talked about is about the earth and how the earth has a vibration and a frequency. And you look at the trees and the plants that grow in different topographies, and the plants and the trees are different. And yes, it has to do with climate and the soil and different things like that, right? But also looking at that these are the species of the land. So the animals are different there, the plants are different, the trees are different, the people are different, the language is different. It's like we are all an expression of that vibration of the land. And the vibration of the land and the frequency of the land is actually different from topography to topography. So, say when I went to Quebec and you stop and you just feel the land, to feel first, to engage in that way, it gives you so much information about a space, right? About a place, about what the land is saying. And it also connects you to the ancestors, the plants and the medicine. It's a much more beautiful way and authentic and natural way to engage. So for me, when I walk into a space that has a lot of history, you can feel it because it imprints on the land. But so while it imprints on the land and it changes the space, the land's frequency and vibration also gifts to the people who are there. You can actually go and dream with the land. When you go somewhere, the stories that have been spilt there or lived there that have influenced and impacted the land, you actually are influenced by it because the vibrations all affect each other. I agree. The first time I had dragon fruit, I was like, what is this? It looked like it was something from the Avatar movie. And I was like, and eating it, it just was like, this does not feel like this is from, like, can you imagine that growing here in Canada? But like, just seeing it and interacting with the vibration of it and the frequency of it and the spirit of it, and then unpeeling it and seeing like this white with the white polka dot spotted, and the outside it's like a dragon scales and pink. But then you cut into the flesh and the flavor, it's like, whoa, that is not what I was expecting, right? Like it's a whole experience. But everything is. Absolutely everything is. You walk into a forest, you walk into a building, you step up to a tree, you step up to a person, right? This is where we lose the sacredness of how to treat each other and engage with each other, not just each other, but nature. It's because we're so disconnected from feeling and connecting and being present to a moment in each other, right? Like when I go into the forest, I like to go slow. I like to go slow and as I step in, I stop and I feel the shift of energy. I take a deep breath. I smell, I sense, I listen, I feel, and then, I pay attention to what's pulling me. Is it a plant? Is it a trail? Is it a tree? Is it the water? Is it a bird? Is it a sound? Right? And I fully allow myself to go and experience it and witness it and engage it. Right? And if it's a tree, like a friend said to me, I want to experience a walk in nature with you. I want to see how you engage in nature. And what a beautiful invitation to witness me interacting in a space and to invite them to be able to interact and experience it as well. And so for me, the first thing we did is we did that. We smelt and we felt and we paid attention and what was calling us, what were we feeling, what were we sensing. And then we came to this tree. And I said, you know what, let's meet this tree. Like, let's really experience this tree and engage it. So the first thing we did is we smelt it. We touched the branches of it. We felt the energy of it. We took in deep breaths. And then we felt it physically, the bark. There was some sap. We tasted the sap. So now we're tasting it. We're experiencing this tree on every level, right? On every level. And it's like to know something, to know someone, you have to be willing to experience them on multiple levels, not just by the words coming out of the mouth, not by the way they dress and how much they make and what job they do, right? It's like actually sense them, hear them, feel them, listen to them, engage them. That's much more like what a beautiful way to interact with people is to explore everybody as the unique being that they are, the spirit, the soul that they show up with. Because every soul, while we are all one, we all have our own expression of our own frequency and energy and soul and life force that we are. And so, like, what a beautiful thing to gift that to somebody else. To say, you get to experience me, you get to witness me. And you guys are, if somebody wants to jump in, you're welcome to jump in if you wanna have this conversation with me. I'd love that. If you want to contribute to it. So yeah, so I'm that's one of the things too, like I recognize this, like especially right now, because there's a lot of division, a lot of heat, a lot of ways, like, people are making TikToks of each other and tearing each other down, and just in so many different levels, people are it's like this disrespect, but why? It's like such a dishonor of another soul. What a way to, like, and when you look at that word dishonor, when somebody's sharing the gift of their sacred essence with you, their being, who they are, what they are, and allowing you the gift of experiencing that, and vice versa, it is truly a dishonor to not receive someone for who and what they are, in all their quirks and all their thoughts, and in their expression of their language, whatever their walk and their journey was. Maybe it's their wounded ego, maybe it's their immense wisdom, who knows, right? But it's all a part of the expression of who they are, and it's a gift to experience it, and it's a gift to engage with it. And I was sitting there, and I know I had got in this conversation with someone, and perhaps we were both disrespecting each other and not honoring each other. But anyways, in that moment, there was an opportunity for me to share something, an insight coming through, a wisdom. And I said to the person, I said, hey, you're bringing something to me. And it's not that you're bringing what you are to me. It's not a problem that you're coming and asking me these questions. That's great. We need to ask questions. But it's the way you're doing it. It's the tone in which you're doing it. It's the way you're presenting. I said, would you approach an elder like this? With this, if you had this question, would you ask an elder in this same way? Because if you're not going to speak to an elder that way, why would you speak to each other that way? Right? Like, shouldn't we be showing that same respect to everyone? Shouldn't we be engaging, like, in this loving way with each other, and actually listening and hearing each other in the same way we would an elder? Like, these laws and these sacred ways of being, these laws of the universe, and these sacred laws, if you will, natural law. It doesn't say only an elder. We treat an elder with that respect. But this is really the respect that we should be engaging with everyone and everything in. Whether it be that tree, whether it be a child, whether it be an elder, whether it be a homeless man, whether it be a freedom advocate or a woke individual, it doesn't matter. Hearing each other, seeing each other, honoring each other, right? Speaking sacredly to each other. These are all beautiful, important things. It would be nice if it was like that. It would also feel a lot more safe, wouldn't it? Like, wow, that feels like peace. That feels like unity. That feels like beauty. It says it would be nice if the world was like that. And the world is like that. Because the world, it's really it happens through us, right? Like, we create our realities. You know that. You've told me that many times in different ways. And it's true. Right? We create our reality by how we show up, express, and what we speak into existence. But also the way we move and engage and interact with the world around us is also a part of the shaping of it. Yeah. It would be beautiful if more people understood that when you engage with someone, they're gifting you their essence. They're entrusting you with it. And that's the way I see it. Like, I see it that way, that somebody, when they engage with me, it's going to make me emotional. That when they engage with me, that they are entrusting me with their soul. They are entrusting me to caretake and treat them respectfully. You know, like how do we caretake each other in a conversation, in an interaction? We've forgotten how to engage with each other, be honoring of each other, and seeing each other as sacred beings. And so we dishonor each other all the time. Yeah. You guys are welcome. If somebody wants to jump in and be part of the conversation, if you got over 1,000 followers, then jump in, guys. Good to see you, Canadian loyalist. You're welcome to jump in. Just saying. Or ask questions, because otherwise I'll just keep going and going on tangents here and one thought into the next. So, but if you guys have any questions and not something silly like why is the sky blue, go Google it. Okay, let's see. What are some respectful behaviors that our Indigenous people need to better our communities? What are some respectful behaviors that our Indigenous people need to better our communities? I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Because, okay, what are some respectful behaviors? I hear that our Indigenous people need. So you're saying respectful behaviors that we as Indigenous people, we need, that will help us better each of our communities? Is that what you're asking me? I think this is something that all people need now, but definitely among our Indigenous communities, yes. We were talking about it earlier about why people struggle with unity and why people go engage in hateful behavior, and I spoke to that why from my insight is that it's because we're not in right relation, fully connected to the medicine we need to, right? Like our medicine, or in relation with, our ancestors, our being, our spirit, our with the creator, whatever it is. Like we all live things, stories that are an important part of our journey, right? But we forget that our stories, we're not victims to them. Our stories are in service to us, right? Our experiences are in service to us. They have so much to gift us. And so what happens is, I just got to unplug because I'm about to die. My battery. One sec. So what happens to ask questions? I don't know if I'm losing people or what, but be sure to ask some questions, guys. Or you're welcome to jump in if you want to have this conversation with me. But thank you for the rose, Justin. Yeah, so what do our communities need was the question. What do our communities need, or our Indigenous people, to better our communities? And I would say that we need to continue our healing and realize we're not victims. We can't be victims. You could only go so far from a victim lens. And then we peak. We peak and we can't continue to evolve consciously, emotionally, mentally, right? We don't touch our potential because we peak when we have a victim mentality and lens. Welcome to the live then. I just read your comment there. Thank you. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say that we need in order, and every community needs that, not just our Indigenous communities. Every community needs that. Welcome, my
Hey,
friend.
how are you?
Good, good. I'm glad you joined. I'm glad you joined. I know we talked about this, and I was in some other lives and then kind of shifted the energy there, but then it was like 3, 4 in the morning, so they had to go, and I thought, you know what? I feel like sharing and speaking and talking about beautiful things, so I decided to jump in my own life. So I'm glad you joined.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you made this live with that. And I think that it's very important that we actually talk about these things with how broken. I think how separated we really are, and even if it's a right wing or left wing, and we always tend to have these, who's right, who's wrong statistics, but it's not even that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it's more about just connecting.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody on the left wing and the right wing actually are good parents, good people, and everything. The problem is, I just think that we have a disconnection when it comes down to maybe just a little bit of identities, but in really truth, maybe it's all bullcrap. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, and I don't know how long you were in here. Were you listening to the conversation at all before you jumped in?
No.
Okay, so you're right. This is what we were talking about before you came. I was talking about how that we're not in connection with ourselves, our spirit, our medicine, and because we're not in right relation and in proper connection with ourselves, that
Yeah.
we're not in connection with anybody and anything, like even the plants, the medicine, the trees. It's like if we went around connecting instead and received each other like
Yep.
as souls, as a gift, and felt and recognize the gift of somebody sharing with you and honor them as sacred, not just elders, but everyone and everything, we would connect in such a different way, right? And we would treat each other in a different way. We
Yep.
would receive others to treat us in a much more sacred way, because when you get in right relation, your boundaries change, and what you'll accept and how you'll be received all change because you respect yourself now. And so then you respect others, and you invite others to respect you. Yeah.
It's so true. Because at the end of the day, we still have feelings. We still have, I mean, we could talk about ideologies all we want or what we think is right or wrong, but the way I look at it is right wing and left wing are still man-made concepts. They're
Exactly.
still man-made concepts, and the natural law is your spirit, mind, and body, and then the communication, the understanding of your environment. All these things that are natural. And we forgot the natural aspect of unity, and that was just about life and loving each other, regardless of anything.
Yeah.
But we have these identity politics. Identity politics only comes from a man-made construct, a man-made world, a man-made society with man-made laws. And all these definitions, when you really look at them, they're all bullshit.
Hmm. Because they're all realities that we've constructed. Right.
Exactly.
And there's so many. So whether you're talking about common law, well, that's just another whole other reality, a
Yep.
language, a lens to see from. Each of our societies, they're all realities that we've created, culture, all of it.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. These are constructs. And
Yep.
what is real and what is truth? Truth is what is sacred and natural. It is the only truth and real thing. But we disconnect from it because we are disconnected. We're not
Hmm.
feeling, we're not tapping in, we're not stepping into that forest and smelling and feeling and connecting with the tree and tasting, and we're not doing that with each other.
So true.
It would be a
You know,
whole other reality if we did.
yeah. And my grandfather used to say something really weird to me when I was young, right? Because I used to, I had this magnifying glass. I was burning these ants with a magnifying glass a long time ago. And he said, don't do that to them. They have life. And I used to sit there, okay. And we're talking about things. And he says, how did he say it? But I remember sitting there, we were talking about being leaders and everything that it says. He says, no, he says, no, sit down and I'll tell you something. He says, if you ever want to be a great leader one day, the greatest leader of all, and this would confuse me as I was a kid, you have to you have to be a leader for the ants. I was like, what the hell you mean ants? You have to be a leader from the ants. You have to, no matter what, take care of them. And the day you start realizing that you are taking care of them and you actually uh, care for the smallest, most innocent thing that barely has nothing compared to you, then you have a right to be a leader out there and you realize how dirty we really are. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know what? That's so beautiful because thank you for sharing and gifting us that story because I was saying today to somebody, and I've said this many times, and people, they have such a hard time receiving this when I say, we are awake for a reason. We are, when you are a shepherd, you don't resent the sheep for being sheep. You're
Yeah,
there to caretake the sheep. You don't
yeah,
resent the sheep for walking into the jowls of the wolf.
yeah.
Understand that you're there to caretake the sheep, and sometimes that's those sheep that run away, and sometimes they fight you, and your story is so beautiful because it's I love that gift. Thank you, because it is that we are caretaking others, whether it be our haters or the liberals or the
Yeah,
trolls or the freedom people or the vaxxers, whatever, the government. Really, we need to be engaging in a way that is still sacred, because when
that's
we
so true.
dishonor others, we're dishonoring ourselves,
Yeah.
right? For
You
me, that's
know,
the hardest part. Sorry, go ahead.
you know, the hardest thing, just like yesterday, right? Or yesterday, I'm sitting there, and this is what I was talking to people about. All of a sudden, I'm saying some things, and a lot of haters came into my life. Not only my live, but my videos, right? My comments,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be really evil and mean. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that they're just angry. People are just angry. And then all of a sudden they start saying that, Adrian, the reason why they died is because you weren't a good father or you could have been a better father. Like talking about my daughter that passed away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this and I just realized, this is what I was talking, even when I was talking to you, when I saw you there at Red Dog's house. I
Mm-hmm.
said, sometimes we have to go to their hell and meet their demons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I realized after listening to this in my heart, and I made another video, and I said, "No, that's okay. Let them keep coming. Let them keep coming." I said, "It doesn't matter. I was prepared for this. All these things. What I mean was, I wanted to see how far their demons were. You know what I mean?"
Yeah. I don't know what I just done. Adrian, if you're there, send another request. I don't know what I just done. There you go. Uh-oh. So yeah, talking about, we'll see if Adrian can reconnect. He's trying to connect. Oh, send another request, Adrian. But let me just see here make sure I'm not turning anything. I should be able to receive you. Let's try that again. There. It says connecting. Yeah, so yeah, talking about just kind of continuing that conversation that Adrian and I were having. Let's see if we can get him in here, get him back in. But we were talking about that, about like his beautiful story there about the ants, and his grandfather telling him that he has to be a leader. He has to learn to caretake the ants, and to take care of them, and to lead by the ants or for the ants. And that is the truth. Like even with our haters, and or those who would turn against us in society, or opposite, people who are of different political views or medical views, or whatever it be, that we still need to be able to remember that everything we are doing, that we need to be able to be leaders for them as well, right? Like it come from a place of that we are in relation and leading everyone, right? So there, let's see if we can connect. I'm not sure why, if there's any reason why, Adrian, you're not being able to connect, but I just tried to send you an invitation. It's not showing you. So I must have did. Oh, wait, there it is. It says connecting. It's, There it says I can now receive guest requests, so we can see if that'll happen, if it'll work. I'm sorry, Adrian. I really enjoyed our conversation and everything you were sharing. We were on a great roll. So while we see if we can get you back in, I'll kind of keep sharing here. But it's to be in a role of leadership. We also need to remember that um, we don't pick and choose who and why and what and how. You are in service. To be in leadership is to be in service. So, and it's our own ego if we decide that when we're in service that we're only going to be in service in this way or to these ones, right? And I thought I saw a strange light, but yeah, it's just recognizing that to be in service means to be in service, right? You're in service for the people and to the people. For me, one of the things that I actually I'm in service to is I'm in service to the truth. I'm in service to the sacred, right? And so sometimes I'll have men and women who will get upset at me, they'll bring something forward and I'll say, no, I don't agree with that. I don't feel integrity in those actions and those words. And it can cause a disagreement between us. But what it comes down to is I'm in service to the sacred. I'm in service to what what is truth. And so let's see here. Did that work? I just tried to add you as a moderator. Confirm. There we go. I just let you moderate because that's what you're asking, right there, Pumper? Oh, I see. He's in there not listening and just trying to bait. That's the other thing that we see a lot of, especially with social media, right? Is we see people who come in and they really want to bait other people. And again, that baiting, you can see things that we're not victims. Everything is about being how we are. Our experiences are in service to us. They're gifting us opportunities. So someone comes in and they start baiting you. They're trying to find your triggers. What's not healed in you? What's not in good relation? What's still a wound or an issue, right? And they're trying to play on your own ego. And so it's a game and when you allow yourself to be baited or triggered, they're just showing you your soft spots that are still there. And it's our responsibility to work those spaces, to heal them, to grow them, to evolve, because that's how you make yourself strong. When you've done your own work, when you're constantly reflecting and holding yourself to a high accountability, you're growing, you're healing, you're learning constantly. That means nobody can ever use your story against you. They've got nothing over you because you've leaned all the way in, which means also those hard parts, the parts where we hold shame or we hold guilt, right? Nobody can ever wield that over you and shame you and guilt you. They can never tear you down or your voice down or what you're carrying and what you're representing in those truths because you know your own integrity. You know your own honor. You know your own areas where you once held shame and guilt. You've healed, you've learned, you've gathered medicine and wisdom there. So that's how you learn to walk in strength. So you learn to carry your truth and to be in service to truth, to be in service to sacred, because that's not always welcomed and received. Like that's something I learned as the freedom bear. Everybody loves the freedom bear when she's calling everything out, the governments and the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and all of these, our premier and our health officials. And it's rah, rah, rah. We love the freedom bear when she's speaking these hard truths and calling out and holding to accountability. But as soon as we show up in a lack of integrity, as soon as we become that which we have spoken out about, as soon as we become the hypocrites that are calling everyone else out but not doing our own work, well, then I say, hey, but that's not easy. It's not easy for people to receive that. And I know this firsthand. It's not easy for people to call us out and say, hey, that's your ego. Hey, that's your personal wound you have. Hey, isn't that a little hypocritical? You know? So we got to remember to also be able to receive things, even from our trolls and our haters, right? Like what are they saying? And is there any merit to it? Is there anything that hey, maybe I can engage with that. Maybe I can grow. Hey, maybe there is something here to this. Welcome back.
I'm glad I'm back. I had to reset my phone.
Oh, it was you then. It wasn't me. I was like, what did I do? I thought I did accidentally kick
This
you.
is this is the third time I reset my phone today, and it's only because probably people are just probably I'm not saying that they are, but what happened was last time when I got told from a left wing friend, it said they were on a different live and they were just trying to report as fast as they could. You know what I mean? And that was before, so I kind of knew maybe I'm not saying that's the issue, but
Yeah.
so far 3 times that happened today. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I was telling you a story about
Yeah.
what was going on. So the guy gave a really rude comment, and I just said, just keep going. Hit me with your best shot, right? That's totally fine. What people don't understand is that when he said these things, I still had to forgive him. And everybody's saying everybody was getting angry. I had to prove a
Yeah.
point in this to even to people that follow me. He says, in these kind of ignorant comments, we have to let it go. We have to, no matter what, because then it makes us just as bad as them.
Yeah.
And then what happens is at the end of the day, we have to pray for him. And I just told him, I would not wish anything on you and your family that I went through. I said, and that's the thing. I said, at the end of the day, I let it go. And I know you're just angry. That's just all you got is anger. And I pray that you let it go. The point is, I'm not trying to be a pacifist or anything. But when I said I would beat that devil, I meant that,
Yeah.
that anger. You know what I mean? And that's the spirit that we have that's separating Canada. And you know what? Most of it is lies, anyways. It's separation. It's just, people are fighting each other in their parents' house. Their different ideologies of conservatives versus this, versus the jab and everything. We're all stuck
Yeah.
if we're
But it
stuck.
only lands and hooks us, and it
Yeah.
only has any merit or bearing if we are carrying something inside us that like if they're trying to make us feel shame, as like for me as a mother, right? If somebody, like if I have any shame as a mother and somebody tries to attack my motherhood, and if I
Hmm.
have shame, then it works. It disempowers me. It breaks me down. And
Hmm.
but if I don't, if I've healed and come to medicine around my story as of being a mother, or my relationship with my mother, whatever it is, then it doesn't land. It has no merit, has no
Yeah.
power to it, because I've already gained the power through it, through my experiences. That's the importance of us doing our healing work.
Hmm. That's why I was reaching out. I wasn't reaching out to anybody. Like I got a comment from Casper. I said, you know what? It's not so much about you going talking about murder missing women. That's an honorable thing. And I said, the point is, I said, we can't put gas on the fire anymore. And,
Yeah.
blame the white people and government. All we can do that, but there'll always be that problem. And I said, the thing is, one day you're going to be an elder. One day you have a big following. And what I would really want is you to, instead of fighting and pointing, bridge the white populace, your people, with my people. Try to find real reconciliation by bringing us together. Because honestly, we need heroes now. Enough of this. Who did what? Who did this? Who
Yeah.
did that? You
Everything
know?
that divides us and our resentments and our,
Yeah.
we're all just men and women. We all have egos. We all have hurts. We all have things that we're learning through, growing through, healing through. And when we show up in a certain way, it's just showing about our journey and what we've walked and lived and still have to heal through. And so people take it so personal, but
Yeah.
it's not personal. It's really not. Nothing ever truly is. Even
You're
when
right.
someone does something intentional, it's not personal. It's just a
Oh,
reflection
you're right.
of their own wounds.
You know, like I didn't know you opposed to 3 weeks ago. You
Yeah.
know, we did, but
No,
like I said, things come together, and I've always believed that a big component of time is, timing is everything. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And I don't know why God or the creator or anything, but I look back. I'll give you an example, okay? I'm going to tell you a story. And I'll tell you this story, and this is to the whole fucking world. I'll tell you what happened. So this was in 2015. My
Okay.
ex-wife and I broke up. I had a bad problem. What happened was I always had this belief that me and her would get back together. So
Mm,
every night I'll go knock on her window at her other house, like a fucking creep. But I always believed that maybe we can get back together for our children's sake. And then one day she phones me in the middle of the night. She says, "Can you come drop off some wine and some cigarettes?" I said, "Sure," because I was just that sucker, because I always wanted to hear her voice, right? So I left from my old apartment. I drove back. As I'm going over there, I was right behind. It was the winter time. I was right behind this big semi, and then another semi was right behind me, squished me right into the other semi. My
wow.
whole vehicle got squished, except the only thing that saved me was this ladder that was in between my work vehicle. I missed my head and hit the steering wheel, and it pushed it up. So I would have got that ladder basically saved me from getting squished from my steering wheel. So that neither here or there, I realized she didn't really care. She said, she says, "Now you have this vehicle in front of my yard. What don't, because I got a towed over there." She was pissed off. So about a week and a half later, I felt like shit that I could have died and all these other things. And I just thought, I'm going to end my life, you know? So that was it. I had my cousin with me at the time. His name was Dallas. And I told him, "You know what? My work vehicle broke. We lost our job." I said, "No offense, but I'm gonna have to take you back to North Battleford. I can't take care of you." So we left about 7 o'clock that night. He got some money sent over. I lost my other job, mind you, because I couldn't get to work, and I had to go for therapy in my back. Oh, because I screwed up my back, it was all bruised up, so I was out of commission.
Hmm.
We ended up going to Battleford. I get there maybe about 11 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? And I already knew when I got back to Edmonton, there was going to be a 2-6, some vodka, you know. And I already knew how I was going to take myself out. I already had that 100% plan. I just had enough of this fucking life. I was thinking, I just had enough of it, you know. So I dropped off Dallas, gave him a hug. He was, "Are you okay, bro?" I said, "No, I'm totally fine. I'm just glad you're back home with your mom." So as I'm driving back, I just prayed. I prayed that when I left Balfour, I don't know what it is, God. I said, "I don't know why I'm here, but you know what I'm about to do. I'm going to go back home." I said, and everything like that, then don't stop me. I don't know why. So I'm driving back home. By the time I passed Lloydminster, it was dark and everything. I just knew I was going to come back home and do whatever I had to do, get drunk and do whatever, unalive myself. But I remember when you're in this state, you start to go back on your memories and everything like that. And I'm alone in my vehicle. I could pretend to see my mom with my imagination. As I'm talking, I can hear her voice and I'm pretending to talk to her as I'm driving, right? So this is going on. I was maybe about 30 minutes to Vegreville from Lloydminster coming through. And then right there and then I'm looking, it was about 1 o'clock in the middle of in the morning. I'm looking, pretending to talk to my mom. Shit you not. I saw something in a field, must have been about 50 meters into the field, and it was the moon was out. I stopped. What the hell was that? I stopped. Did I just see something? I thought a ghost or something. I look in my rear view mirror. Two people are running down the street, down the road, running down the road. And I got these goosebumps, right? And they still talk to me today. These two Indians, they were walking and they were in the field. I
Mm.
said, "What are you guys doing on the road?" He said, "Well, we got kicked off in Vegreville. We went to Grand Prairie for healing for addictions. We finished everything, but we decided to celebrate when we're going back to Winnipeg." He says, "We started drinking on the bus. We got kicked off in Vegreville. So we're trying to hitchhike in the middle of winter. We're trying to hitchhike back to Winnipeg. But the RCMP said when they stopped us, they said we can't walk with the traffic. That's illegal. We have to walk against the traffic on the other side of the road. So they made them jump on the other side of the road, which you'll never get. Nobody. You know what I mean? You'll never get a ride.
Yeah.
So they've been walking for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. They must have been walking about 40 kilometers and they were frozen in the middle of winter. So they never had enough, what do you call, they only had this phone. Then they went on top of that little hill in that field and they're trying to make, signal.
Oh.
They couldn't. So what happened was they pulled out some sage and he says, one guy was crying and they were frozen on that hill. And then he says, well, I'll pray. 5 minutes, the next car that came by stopped. How did you see us on that hill? He said. Because I don't know how. How did you see us? He said. I said, I don't know how. I just saw you there. No, because honestly, I was praying and you showed up. You see? So,
I believe.
anywho,
Yeah.
they jumped in my vehicle. I said, I'll drop you off at Vegreville. You have to wait for a truck driver. So as I'm going over there, they fell asleep in my freaking vehicle. And then I just woke the guy up and said, you know what? I'll just take you to Edmonton. You must know somebody that's from Winnipeg or your reserve that's in Edmonton. It's a big enough city. And he happened to get in contact with some of the chief's family, whatever, right? But what happened was, as soon as he fell asleep, I got to Edmonton. She ends up phoning me back saying, I can't take him. My boyfriend is here. He's very jealous. I can't take him. I don't know what to do. She hangs up on me. I was like, okay, I was about to unalive myself anyways. Hopefully they'll kill me at my house. Whatever. I don't care, right? I take him back home where Dallas was sleeping. I tell him, go sleep in there. The next morning, I got a phone call from Empire Drywall. He says, they phoned me and said, are you working? Well, I'm supposed to be waiting for WCB and everything like this to happen, the whole nine bits, and not WCB, but the insurance company for my back.
Because
And he
of
said,
your
well,
accident, right?
yes, after my accident, yeah.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, I don't know what else to do. Well, we got a small job, repairs. And he says, well, I don't got no tools because they're all in that vehicle. It got squished. Come to the office. I'll go over there. They written me a $1,500 check. $1,500 check. And he says, just don't worry about it. We understand you. You're a good guy. Here's this, and you'll pay it back. Get yourself some tools and everything. And that was when money started coming in. And then
Mm.
as soon as I started that following Friday, a $12,000 check came in from my vehicle, you know. So insurance came in, and then that was really weird. And at the same time, too, believe it or not, I go down to the what do you call? There was a gas station, a co-op. I won $50,000 on a scratch and win.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's not money; it's the aspect of things that had to come through.
Everything's supporting, showing you you're supported in your journey,
Yeah,
right? And supporting at the
and
right time, ways you need
yeah,
it.
but here's the thing. That same day after I got all these weird things that happened that week, the chief, Arlen Dumays, he's the chief of the Arlen Dumays. He phones me because he's a part of some kind of a big chief over there. That was his nephews that were here.
Wow.
So he
That
ended
you,
up giving me a phone call, thanking me everything, the whole nine bits, trying to give me $500. Said no, just give it to the boys. Said I'll always remember you. So that's Arlen Demaze. I don't know if you ever heard of that name, Arlen Demaze,
I've heard
but
his name, but I don't know him. I've heard his
I
name
think
on.
he's like a big chief up there in that side, like not just a small, but he's like an AFN chief or something like that over there. But he's the one that was talking to me about this kind of weird stuff, and that's what I believe. The thing is, I believe in timing is everything, is what I'm saying. Timing is everything. God or the creator has timing. And I don't know why, because, if I didn't think crazy thoughts at night, something so crazy, I wouldn't have saved those kids, or it wouldn't be at the same time at that very exact moment in a field, both 50 meters in a field that you should never have seen.
Yeah. Yeah. You saved
That's
those kids saved you, right?
exactly.
Then you were fully supported after in your journey after. And I think I'm going to bring it back around because you and I had a phone call earlier today, and I said to you, we were meant to meet. And I think I
Yeah.
recognized within the first night of us meeting here on TikTok that we were meant to meet. We were guided together. Um, and it was purposeful, and there's a reason to it, right? And yeah, yeah, because we met
Maybe.
was 3 weeks ago already
Yeah.
on and then within an hour, not even an hour of meeting in person in Alberta, which is just again divinely guided to meet in person after what 3 4 days before we met on TikTok. Was
Hmm.
planned, wasn't nothing. I go to a birthday party in northern Alberta on a reserve, and you just laughed. I was like,
Yep.
what? I just met that guy the other night on TikTok. And then, so I was like, no, we're supposed to connect. I recognized it. So I reached out, and I had no idea you were only an hour away. Like, so that was really cool. And then within an hour of meeting, we did that TikTok live fireside at Red Dogs.
Yep.
And it was just like, just the natural flow. Yeah.
There's something here, and I said that it's bigger than all of us. It's bigger than anything because this is reconciliation. This is everything in a jackpot of everything. And it means that real people have to come up and guide because a lot of people can't guide, especially with egos and ignorance. I'm not saying ignorance as in ignorance, I'm saying ignorance of understanding the soul that we need that, you know?
Hmm.
People have smarts and everything. And here's the funny thing, we wouldn't need politics or leaders today if we were all smart. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well, I would disagree.
Hmm.
If we all believed in ourselves, we wouldn't need.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. In the man-made concept of things, we need direction because of, man-made construct, whether it's laws and all these other things, we wouldn't need these people if we knew who we were and we
And
could,
we understood our potential, and we believed
exactly.
in our capabilities to make choices and decisions for ourselves and our
Yeah.
well-being and our family. We wouldn't look to others all the time and give our power away for others to lead us. And then which leader, which party, it's all a facade. We need to lead ourselves. We are the ones we've been waiting for. It's about us
It's
believing in
true.
ourselves and our capabilities.
So I believe in feminism and I believe in manism. I think we both have powers, that we both have certain gifts, but we're all equal in the same way. When I looked at feminism before, it was about man hating, and I looked at, a lot of people hating women in the aspect of who is right and wrong. Maybe we're all wrong. We just need to listen to each other, you know?
Yeah. I would, you know what, feminism is something I journeyed with because of course I believe in the sacred feminine, and of course I believe in the medicine and of what women hold and what that is, and that needing to rise and be present and brought back out as sacred and utilized. But where we went wrong with feminism and women finding their liberation is that we did this thing that we always do, and you see it repeated in society and in human behavior, is that we think to empower ourselves, we need to tear others down and make them smaller. And we even see this not, so we did this to men. We think to empower ourselves, now we got to make men less. No, you don't take the power of someone else away. You empower them into their medicine. We need to stand strong and walk strong with each other. A strong man in his masculine medicine and a strong woman in her sacred feminine, and they're both sacred. But then we do this in society as well all the time, which is equity versus equality.
Hmm.
Equity says that you and I are equity deserving minorities, and that our voices will never be powerful enough or have equal playing field with people who are non-Indigenous because we are Indigenous, we are minorities. And to me, that is extremely limiting. That is extremely damaging to our own sense of our capabilities, our medicine, our power, our worth. To be saying that our voices would never be equal, we have to lower other people down, silent, quiet their voices.
Hmm.
I think this is absurd and it's damaging, and this is what we're putting on all these First Nations and every minority group. Are we asking them to become victims? Why are we asking
Exactly.
them to play less and be small and not reach their potential and their power and their full capabilities?
The power of a woman is, is the same as a man in their own way. Like a power of a woman could make a man into a great leader, and a power of a man can make a woman into a great leader. And that's the thing. We both have to, we can't look at it as, who has more power or less, because that means that we're in competition with each other. And that's where they win.
That's right. Because then if we're in competition with each other, it means that we are not in right relationship with our own medicine.
True.
We would feel less than in the presence of a strong male or a strong female, right?
Yep.
We're
Yep.
threatened in it. We're in competition. We don't need to be. The
Yep.
sacred masculine is beautiful and powerful and sacred and all that it is, and we should want it to be present. We should want to lift it up. We should want it to be there and engaging in it, just like
Yeah.
we be invited in our sacred feminine to be that.
And that's a powerful thing because, like, I was looking at a live earlier today, and people were talking about laws and everything, the whole thought laws about, the water laws and, all these other kind of laws, that the man-made construct of everything that made it. And I keep on telling myself they've forgotten about the natural law. And the natural law is for me and you to have unity, at the same time to try and empower ourselves, and having these spiritual talks and these good talks and understanding each other, because if I hurt your feelings, then we could come to the table, because it
Hmm.
takes respect. Same with me, both sides. And that's what we forgot, because, what I've always said, money in this man-made construct. It used to be, if I got hunted a deer and everything like that, and I gave it, and we bartered and everything, it would be respect. He's a good hunter, and this is, and you know how to make clothing, and we work together. I'll only give it, we work together as a collective, because then I value you as a person, you value me as a person, and that's how it was. But money, we forgot about valuing each other, because I can just buy it anywhere now. It turned we into I now. That's what I've always noticed about money. I'm not saying that money is bad or evil. I'm just saying that it can be bad, damaging to a society that lost culture, lost spiritual connection, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
I be, you know what? I want to go back a minute there when you're talking about like men and women and kind of more some of the roles they might have had, right? Like going and hunting and then a woman taking it and making into clothes and stuff. Something that I've really been looking at, and especially this past year, is just noticing men when they're in relationship with women or with the feminine from a more sacred place, and how um when there's respect there, it's like the masculine is being in service to the feminine and is wanting to nourish and caretake the feminine. And when the feminine is in service to the masculine, it's the same thing. So there is no competition.
yeah,
It's support. It's a dance, a flow, and both are nourishing and caretaking each other.
hey, uncle.
We're
Yeah,
serving
no,
each other.
that's exactly what there's no other way else to say it. Like, we had our own personal discussions prior to our talking about sexuality and things. I don't want to get too in depth with it, but I think there's so much to be said about that. Is because when you look at the spiritual war right now, whether we like to believe it or not, it's all about a sense of, I mean, individuality and sexuality, if that makes sense. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because right now, when I mean sexuality, I mean the sexes, man and female. I'm talking about the divine energy of them too. And there's a disconnect. There's no communication. There's no real understanding. And this man-made world made us think about jobs more than people, or having that time to actually understand each other, and having those intellectual conversations about morality sometimes, even with movies. But
Mm-hmm.
what happened was, like I've always said, like now we have identity politics, and you notice every identity politics that we have are led by not elders. They're led by, victims. And I hate to say it that way. And there's got to be a point where we have to bring our elders back, like,
Yeah.
to talk about. I tell you what, right now, this is what I told people. The reason why the left wing is hurting so much is because they're bleeding inside. They're bleeding inside to the point where feelings trump facts right now because they want to feel important. And
Mm.
that's a noble cause. And the problem is we have identity politics where the right are extremely like, well, get off your ass. You know what I mean? But the point is they don't have fathers or elders. They don't have leaders. And at the end of the day, what happens to them is that they're begging for anything, and if they can hurt you because of their feelings, you know, that's
Yeah.
what we become. So now that's what I've always told people. Instead of anything, let's not fight them. They need elders, they need love just as much as we need love, you know,
Yeah.
and that would unite them.
You know what? I
So
love that what you're talking about. That's beautiful and it's true. And like people call liberals bleeding hearts, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah. And because it is a manipulation of what is true and beautiful about us when we're in good relation, we are naturally wanting to love, to respect, to be in good relation, to be kind, to do right, to do good. We're not, and it's just been manipulated and used against us for so long that it's now, they tear us down, they break down our identity, they break down our sense of worth and value, or they disconnect us from our medicine and self, and that connection, and then connection with each other, community, relationships in that way, right? And
Mm.
then they gear us towards this, oh, they play on what's still there. We want to do right, we want to do good. And it's like, oh, they wield us almost, right? Like, oh, those people who aren't wearing masks, they're bad in society. And we're like, oh, we want to be good. We want to do good. We're going to put on the mask. We're going to do the good thing. But it's like, because we're hungry for that, because we're so out of disconnection with ourselves. We're so out of disconnection with each other. So it's these false ways, these constructs, these manipulations. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying.
No, no, it does. I
Yeah.
think you were telling me a story, or who was telling me? There's there's one woman that was telling me a story. She walked into a dollar store, right? And she saw this older lady always talking about her hand got hurt, right? So she would talk to the store clerk, got hurt. All of a sudden, she says she's seen her in a different aisle. She's talking about her hand that got hurt, even though it was not as. She says, "I feel a lot better." And but she went outside. She met her, and she says, "Oh my God, why is this woman always talking about her hand that got hurt?" Then she thought about it while she's driving away. She says, "You know what it was? It wasn't that her hand was hurt. It's just that she was lonely.
Mm.
She wanted to use her pain to have a conversation to see." And she also said that her children moved away and everything because from that conversation she heard the same kind of conversation where her children moved away. She's alone in this world. My hand is hurt. When you
Mm.
really think about it, it's because we have such a disconnect,
Yeah.
and they use that. And then you have to look at it as, is that what we become? Yes, that's what we've become in society. And I think
by
that's why
by
everybody
design,
is lost.
consciously and tactfully by design. not X.
exactly.
Hmm.
And I just think that I think more the reason why they say in 10 years, 85% of relationships or 84% of relationships will end in adultery is not because of that. It's because somewhere along the line, they're a little bit no connection in relationships like they used to have back in the 80s, 70s, whatever. When marriages meant something or relationships meant something. It's just that I think we're more disconnected than anything, maybe because of social media, but it can also be a great tool for the people that are, understand, and that's what we need to do is bring back, a sense of eldership or something that feelings and spirit and wisdom, because they don't teach wisdom at school. They only teach blue and yellow is green,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I got the honor though last year because of all the mandates in the schools. I pulled my daughter out of school, my youngest. I didn't want her wearing a mask all day and being. Anyways, I put her in a nature school, and it was through homeschooling, and then we ended up losing our Monday program teacher, and so they were looking for someone, and they approached me and asked me if I would come and I would be the Monday coordinator. So I got to be the teacher, and we got to spend it all day long with the kids in nature by the river and climbing trees. And we, you know how we have the great big trees out here, so it'd be like a huge fallen tree, and we would walk on it. And it was beautiful. It was such a gift. And I got to do that for almost a year. And I got to share with the kids about connection and connecting with trees and the stones, and how everything has a spirit and everything has a vibration and a frequency. And it's just about sensing it and being in relationship with it. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. It was a really special gift. And that is the type of stuff we should have with our kids and with our in our schools and with each other, in different ways, is just connection, right? And yeah.
Yeah, once we have a sense of relationship, responsibility, and not only that, like real communication, this is why we wouldn't be fighting today. I think we'd probably try to understand each other more, than anything. And that's the beautiful thing about what's going to change, because I think now more than ever, everybody realizes one thing that, that we have to, everybody's broken right now, or everybody's hurting, not broken. I'd say everybody's hurting, and they need leaders to make people understand, that we all need each other regardless of anything. You know what I mean? We
Mhm.
do need each other. My neighbors need me, I need them, and we're talking about communication is what we really need. A soul to soul connection. And what I
Mhm.
mean by soul, but I mean by mind to have real conversations, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's actually something that I say now too. Like I really recognize that when I'm in engagement with people, I want to
yeah,
engage soul to soul. I
yeah,
don't have time for surface talk and pretense and all these constructs and rules. Just come in soul to soul and just get real. Just be real. We don't have time for that. Why waste energy playing these games of something that doesn't even make sense? Just show up person to person, soul to soul, and just be real. Lean all the way in, fully experience each other. And you know what? And going back to leadership, like we moved away because leadership used to mean something. Like, what was a leader? A leader was a voice of the people. It was someone who was in service to the people, and vice versa. Like he was. They now today are so disconnected. They're not about being in service to the people. It's about education in schools and the way they were programmed. It's the mental approach rather than approach of connection. So like our leaders today, it's such a strange, they're so disconnected. Some of
that's
them
all
never
right.
even lived any kind of life like we did, from the same tax bracket or anything like that. How can
Hmm.
they relate to us?
A leader would put his life on the line for his people. He would gladly go into war because he loved his people. He got to know every man, woman, and child in his tribe, in his little, his little war camp, whatever, his little whatever. He saw, he administered, and he was a part of that community with love and understanding. It was humility.
Mm-hmm.
He watched everybody grow, and everybody knew who he was because of the respect aspect, and that's what unity was about. Because we actually had these kind of conversations back in the day. But now today in the reservations, and I hate to say it, not to knock them. I know some people really try, but it's the system that separates them. It's these kind of systems that knock them down. And now it just became a number game. And if there was going to be any war that was going to come into our reservations, I guarantee you the chief and councils would just give up. They wouldn't fight for us. They'll just walk away because they don't know how to. There's too much of a disconnect.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Leadership
He-
is
yeah,
has different criteria today, but it actually has nothing to do with leading people.
yeah. It's not even about hearts anymore because he wouldn't put his life on the line. He says, "Well, I can't do nothing."
Yeah.
He'll walk away, and that's not what a leader is about. Back in the day, when there was a war, he would be the first one on the field because that's my people. I have to stand for. I have to because that's my heart. Those are my grandchildren. Those are my people. Those are my elders. Those are my women. Those are my young warriors. That's what he had to do back in the day because there was honorability behind it because he loved his people, like really loved his people.
The other
And
thing, though, about that is because those were roles that were sacred.
true.
They understand every role was understood as sacred medicine, and these were sacred roles, and so you were also initiated into it, what it meant to be a
Hmm.
warrior. Went on this journey and a matriarch, and each of these sacred things, a father, a woman, a hunter, a leader, it was a
Yep.
sacred role. And so with leadership today, it's not sacred anymore. It's completely disconnected from actual natural law of what
Yep.
there is, because natural law does have its own sacredness of what a leader is. And we're not in connection with that. Not today, not what I see out there.
That's why we have to go over there and do what we got to do. Regardless of how many people are against us, it's about the love that has to go out there. It has to be infectious. When we wake them up to understanding, because I tell you one thing, everybody has the same disease right now. Every single man, woman, and child that walks these streets, that are on the streets, the people that are rich, they have the
Yeah.
same disease. The people that are poor have the same disease.
Mhm.
Even our politicians have the same disease, and they realize that there's no unity within honorability in their hearts. Like what I'm talking about is
Yeah,
their true connection. There's nothing there,
that's right. Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
everybody yearns that.
You want to
Everybody yearns that.
Yeah. And you know what the thing about that too is, like, I'm going to say something, and just bear with me where I'm going with
Yeah.
it. But like, that's what I call colonization, to be colonized.
Hmm.
That is a sickness of the mind. The perception is warped through
Yep.
colonization, because what it is what the white buffalo calf woman prophecy teaches us and speaks about, right? It's that when we want to covet, have dominion over, and possess, we're not following sacred law anymore, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of leaders today, and this divide and conquer, it's all a part of that. It's not in sacred relationship with things anymore. And when you're not in sacred relationship, you try to covet, possess, and have dominion over. We impose. We're always imposing upon each other. And now look at our all our governments, and look at our leadership, right? And look at
Yep.
our communities and our chiefs and councils and our mayors and MLA, all of it. It's all this warped perception and lens that is not sacred. It's a colonial mindset. It's a sickness of the mind.
Yep. It's the credit system, it's the money system, it's the laws that be that put more restrictions on us, and the more restrictions we have, the way down the line, it like corrals us into an ideology. This is an institution, just like a jail. And we got so used to it that we even don't even know it exists, you
Hmm.
know? And that's what I've said to Native Americans and reservations. You guys are in a jail cell and you don't even know it because it's just like if you were born in a jail cell and that's all you ever known, it became normal.
You know
And
the elephant? Oh, sorry. Go
pardon
ahead.
me?
Go ahead. I was going to ask if you knew the story of this of the elephant.
No, but I would like to hear that.
So, you, they would take these baby elephants when and to like zoos and things like that, and they would put these great big chains around their ankle, and they would have them chained up. And with time, that baby elephant got so used to being chained up that as it grew, they just took the chain off and the elephant didn't take off because it was so used to being there. They could just put a little thread around its ankle and it would just stay
Yeah,
there because it was so used to being in prison that even when it could just leave and be free, it didn't because
yeah,
it right and we do the same things in every way like our people and our reserves it was an imprisonment like the
yeah.
Indian agents had to grant you a pass to leave, like, and to not,
No, I totally hear you.
yeah. But now, all of our communities are shifting and going to be run like this, right? Our smart cities, our 15-minute cities that are coming in. Now it's all turning into a reservation, right? I think you
Yeah.
did on that, didn't you?
Everything's going to turn into reservation. They don't even know. I said we went through so much losing everything there that I said that the residential school system didn't die, it just changed the spirit and went to our system right now,
Yeah.
into the public school system, and the children are next. The indoctrination is next. And that's what they did. They made certain we weren't allowed to speak Cree. I was strapped when I was speaking Cree, and that's what's going to happen to these kids. They're going to be indoctrinated into it, and socialism is here in reservation because we don't have, it's a system. And if you speak out against the chief and councils, you lose your job and you could lose your house, or you can be penalized. And the same will happen here too. They'll take your money away because,
They're
that,
debanking people right now.
yeah,
That's big happening, right? The debanking, where the
yeah,
banks are them and just they're debanking them.
yeah. And that's the thing that's going to happen to a lot of people. And that's the thing that I've always said is like we have to try to understand that white society don't even know how much rights we lost. And as a matter of fact, I've always said we don't really have rights. We're still underneath the colonial system of the Indian Act. And it's a system that was made over hundreds of years. And they've done that to other 57 countries. This is how they get it. They slowly instilled their policies in that. What happened to Australia? They lost all their land.
Hmm.
And we have the largest land grab in Canadian history right at this very moment. And people don't understand it. And we said in 2009, in 14 to 40 years, Canada will take all its land. And people didn't understand how. And I've always said this. My grandfather, he was like this. He said this to me. Remember, we are not a definition, we're an identity. And I used to say, what does he mean? We have to claim our name no matter what that is on the Treaty 6. He said, we're a Native American Indian. We have to claim that. If they start changing it into an identity, like a definition, then it changes the law in that treaty. And he says, whether you like to believe it or not, that treaty is the thing that's going to save Canada in the very end. And I used to wonder why. How does my treaty save Canada? And I'll tell you why. Is because we made that treaty with the Commonwealth, not Canada, not the sovereignty of Canada, with the Commonwealth. And the thing is, once we destroy that treaty, then Canada takes over 100% of all resources. So that's why they're trying to, like this identity politics thing when they're talking about birthing people and everything, it started there. and it started coming down to our Native American people. When you have to look at, they're trying to change the definitions of the United Nations, yet we never made a treaty with the United Nations.
Hmm.
And so, and these are the same people, the United Nations and World Economic Forum and everybody that's coming down the line. And I've always said to the natives and all the white people, we are the last guards of our land because it's not because of it's our land, it's because we have blood ties to natural law, to the treaty on our land. If we lose that, then you guys, we all lose rights. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Absolutely.
It is Chris. Hi, Chris. How are you? He's pretty good. This is the guy
Yeah.
that, like I said, I had a 5 day ceremony and Chris was there. And I remember what they told us. I said I'll be fighting my own people, and Chris will be doing his own thing on his. He'll be for his people. But
Oh,
now, at the end of the day, we change. We have to work together. That's what they were saying when I was talking to that elder there, and it's weird what they told me. It's exactly what happened, and I didn't want to do that, but there's Chris right there. Anyways, that's the guy he took me down to his. We had a sweat shaking tent and a flag ceremony, everything in one week, eh? And
mm-hmm.
and yeah, exactly, Chris, because that's exactly what they said to us. They said that you're gonna be something straight, and I would have to fight my people. And I didn't realize. I told them I didn't want to fight my people, but you have no choice. They told me so. you know? And this is exactly what happened. But this is the thing that has to happen in order for us to open eyes. We have to be the opposition. We have to do everything, but we have to create that conversation. And sometimes you have to be a good guy and a bad guy to create, a great conversation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm saying about the treaties and everything like that. We have to realize that natural law has to trump man-made law at the very end. We have to not forget about animals because animals have to have their own right. Water has to have its own right, and land has to have its own right. Just like my grandfather said, you have to fight for an ant first. Once you fight for an ant and how innocent that is, then you realize how disgusting we really are trying to, you know, take
Ab-
care of our world.
I agree. And I think that was a really beautiful story you shared about the aunt and your grandfather. And it comes down to that humility
Yep.
of the staying in connection, even to the littlest things but also seeing and knowing that everything is sacred. Everything does have rights, the rights of the water, the plants, the animals. We're so disconnected that we forget about that and we forget to be in relationship with them and to fight for them and to respect them, and each other and each other. Oh,
So,
you cut your phone's cutting out. Oh, you got a phone call, I think. Your phone up.
no, I'm good.
I can't hear you though.
I just touched my actually. You can hear me? Just hold on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Uh, Cutting out a bit though.
Is that, I don't know. I don't know if you can hear me, but I just wanted you to know
It's
that it's
all
great.
messed up. No, you're all messed up.
Yeah, something is messed up, eh?
Oh wait, now I can hear you. There you
Okay.
go. There you go. Now
You can
you
hear
I
me now? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm glad you can hear me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I'm glad we actually had these discussions because I think these are the things that need to be said for everybody. I think that, when we have humility and we put it down with honorability and just put our real intentions down on a line, that's when we actually understand each other more, you know?
When we are in service to truth and recognize truth doesn't come from men and women, but actual truth is the truth of the natural law of the sacred, of the heart of from spirit, from creator, the law of the cosmos and the universe, right? Like that's what sacred law is. That's
Yeah.
what natural law is. And that's what truth is. And so when you're in service to truth, right? That's what's real. And so sometimes you got to speak those hard things, but a lot of times they're beautiful things you're speaking.
You
And it's
know,
all back to connection.
you're right. And everybody has that truth in them. But I think that sometimes people are so scared of their own truth because sometimes they have sins that they might uncover because of their past. And I had those things too. Like I had when I was in my relationship, the reason why me and my ex-wife split up is not only because she left me for a church, is because I was abusive. And I
Mm-hmm.
put that out there before. You know, I have nothing to hide. I wasn't a good guy because of what I learned. And I'm not trying to use that as an excuse because my father was abusive, my mom was, on the streets, and I didn't have too much. I wasn't taught with respect for women at one time, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'm not using that as an excuse to why I was. It's just the way I was at that time. But I learned that I had to go through a certain way in my life, regardless of what I had to go through. You know, I used all my pains and the pains that I hurt people with, and I had to learn. And that's where my education came from. I had to learn myself. And when I found myself, that's when I realized that no devil is ever gonna use, my pain or my humility or, how embarrassed I was of my past. Because at the end of the day, you know what? I have to own that, but also I have to use that in an educational way for others. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't perfect. Nobody is perfect. I'm pretty certain a lot of us did some things that we did was, wrong, probably really evil acts at one time. But I tell you, once you conquer that in your heart and allow, yourself to tell the truth, you're gonna love yourself that much more better. You're gonna have respect for yourself because when you're hiding things, that's where the devil lives. That's where the evil spirit lives, and that's where your control is. That's what controls you.
Where
And maybe that's what, yeah,
you're imprisoned, you're imprisoning yourself now because
yeah,
of shame and guilt. Now you are enslaved. There is no freedom there, right? Because you
exactly.
yourself in your mind and your heart.
Like
Yeah.
I had to tell some stories to these kids when I was a circle keeper, and I had to put it out there how old I was when I got S8. I had to tell these things, so I have to try to tell that even to my children. Tried to tell them where I fell when I was in sexual abuse a long time ago. But the point is, I had to be honest, and it was embarrassing for me. But being honest after a while maybe will help people, and you have to put it in service. You could either use it to destroy your life, or you can use it to actually help others. And by helping others is a noble cause because maybe, and I hate to say it, maybe you were in that situation for a reason,
Well, I
you
believe
know.
absolutely we are. Everything we live is in service to us. Our journey is in service to us. We're not victims to our story. Everything has something to gift us. We walk where we walk for a reason.
That's so true. And that's what, if I was, what do you call, born with a silver spoon, and everything, and I had all the help in the world, I would not have my daughters today, is what I'm saying, or my son today or my grandson, is because then I would not meet the people in my life. I would just be somewhere else. So sometimes going through poverty, sometimes going through a lot of stuff, going through hell makes you that much stronger, but also, creates the people in your life that you love. Or if you changed it and you had an easier life, you never meet these people, you
That's
know?
right. That's
So
right. It's an amazing journey, isn't it? And then to see who we're brought to and brought together with, and at different times in the journey, like that amazing story you shared, and even it's a fascinating journey when we take the time to really reflect on it and the things we've walked and the things we've learned and the connections we've made and where our journey has guided us and how. It's actually quite fascinating.
yeah. And that's why I said to people, if you want truth, you have to conquer your own and realize you have no control over your past anymore. All you have to do is forgive yourself, and that's the hardest thing sometimes.
Hmm. That
And
I believe that that is the hardest thing we can ever do,
yeah,
is the work we do on ourselves, to forgive ourselves, to let go of that shame and guilt, and to understand that it's okay to heal through our stories, and recognize, what did our stories gift us? What those are.
exactly. And I think that's what will help with the grandchildren and everything. For that's the reason why probably most of us are broken is because we can't come to our truth. Is because maybe we're all ashamed, you know. But we have to get through that. We have to, no matter what, because our grandchildren need that more than ever. You know, our next generation need that more than ever, or else this world that is what it is right now, the powers that be, will always use that against us.
Mm-hmm. Our freedom movement needs that too, right? Like, this is
Yeah,
somebody asking me, like, why don't we have unity in that, in another live as in this? Like, why do you think, Serena? Why don't we have unity? And that's why, because we're not in right relation. We're not in unity within ourselves, to our spirit, our medicine, our gifts, our potential, right? Our ancestors
yeah,
created it to be in right relation. When we're in unity within ourselves, then we can be in unity with each other.
that's so true. Well, Serena, I'm gonna have to let you go. It's getting late
So
here
I
now.
got,
It's 3 o'clock.
like, it's 2:15 here. So thank you. I'm glad we got to come live together again, and got to share it with some of you guys, and maybe I'll upload it to YouTube again.
That would be pretty cool. That's an
Yeah.
awesome. That's an awesome thought. Okay, thank you very much. You guys have yourself a good night, and thank you guys for listening, and thank you for letting me on your live too.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good night. And
You
everybody
too.
have a good night too. Good night.
Bye.